background there. Today is October 8th, I think, and we're doing a 1 hour stream. Anybody that wants to get on and comment, we can start talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. Uh, uh, we're going to talk about perspective first, as far as how it relates to kind of figuring out, if you're missing direction in your game and you don't know where to go. I think that by taking a look at your perspective and shifting your perspective on things can help you move forward. So we're going to talk about that.
Baby, it's not showing you as live right now on YouTube.
It says it's live right here.
Oh, then I don't know.
It says it's live. Yeah, because when it disconnects, it says it disconnects on my phone on this one. We got one viewer here.
There it is. It just showed up for me, dude. Sorry. My phone wasn't updated.
Okay. So where was I? I think where I was just about to start talking about kind of how I have it set up from my own perspective and the way I look at the different kinds of perspectives that you can have. And for myself, I think that it makes a lot of sense to kind of look at everything from a long-term perspective. Even as a new player, if you kind of have an idea of what kind of goals you might have long-term based on kind of where you're at right now, it's helpful to kind of lead you to the next place that you should be to get to the next level that you want to. If you've already been playing for a long time and you don't have a lot of time to play pool, then probably your perspective is more that you're using it as a social outlet, and you know that you don't have enough time to improve, so it's difficult to do that. So you just enjoy yourself, enjoy the social element, and then now you're at peace with what happens with the game, and you can really enjoy yourself. If you're maybe a younger person, or you're just getting started with pool, but you have a lot of time to invest in it, and you really enjoy it, then now you're talking about being able to probably put in enough time and invest enough time to continue to improve, at least with your knowledge. Obviously, as you get older, your body might slow you down a little bit physically, but I think that one of the nice things about pool, of course, is that the strategy can help you overcome physical deficiencies as you get older, or maybe you have injuries from other sports or activities or work or whatever, and now you can stay healthy enough to play pool, but maybe you can't put in as many hours, or you can put in as many hours and you're using it to try to get healthier. Either way, understanding kind of the perspective of where you're at, so you can look forward into the future a little bit and decide, okay, well, one of the things that I want to do long term might be that if I'm going to continue to enjoy myself, because the game can be tough, emotionally, and once I realize from a long term perspective that if I'm going to continue to keep playing pool as long as I can, this is the game that I love to do. It's going to be one of my mainstay hobbies. But now you can say, well, through all of that activity over the course of my life, I wanted to have developed the sense of like peace about like just try to be there to have a good time, knowing that it's a tough game, knowing that you're signing up, to see yourself fail, because in competition, both players are trying to win. So it's not like you get to decide, oh, I'm going to go in here and just have victory every time. It's more about, can I go in, work on the things that I'm working on with my pool game and try to improve, and then see how that compares maybe to the last time I went out, and you don't necessarily have to have better results to feel like you have a better outcome for your own personal benefit. Maybe it's you sign up for a tournament and now there's some really tough players, and you go fairly deep, but you play well against them. Maybe you beat one, and that you normally wouldn't win, and then you end up still coming up short, but maybe you go hill with another, maybe the favored player in the tournament, versus another tournament you might win, but you don't play anybody that plays well, and you feel like, yeah, you maybe they just handed it to you. You can't decide how well the players against you are going to play. All you can do is just show up with your your plan, your mindset, and then execute on that. And that's really what for me is it keeps me at peace with it. Is like I don't care who plays the tournament, who I'm playing against. I have my own personal goals as far as like I want to show myself a certain way and develop those characteristics. So I think long term, I got to learn more patience, learn how to be more relaxed, so that I'm more relaxed as that older person. You kind of have to develop that habit as well as the physical habits of the game itself. The way you hit the ball, you have to develop. Also, the way that you see the game in your heart sort of has to change and also line up with what you want your future future personality to be like, so to speak. Um, so with that in mind, I was just going to talk a little bit about different things that can happen while you're playing pool that can kind of throw you off. That maybe you know um, it could be useful for some people to hear some of my stories as far as like ways that I changed the script in my mind when I maybe start having a little bit of a negative mindset about what's going on. Like if you miss a key ball, and you leave your opponent an easy out and then they get out, it can be a little bit disheartening. And then if you let that grow too much, then it can kind of overcome your ability to have a good time. Even if you end up winning, you might be beating yourself up unnecessarily. So it's important in those times to have more of a short-term perspective of like uh, maybe going into the match that that's one of the tendencies that you've had in the past and you're working on that. So then you prioritize like, well, at the end of this match, I'm going to have felt like I did really well reframing all my mistakes and realizing that they're all just learning opportunities, and that when I make a mistake, that's actually the best chance to learn because you're experiencing a little bit of discomfort through the mistake. And that's an indication that, you probably are making changes, either through like you want to do better. So you have to think, oh, okay, well, when I got into that mindset and that frame of mind where I was started to be thinking a little bit negatively, what could I have done instantly to change my perspective so that now instead of feeling down on myself, I realize it's like, it's all good. All I have to do is just recognize that I hit the ball, to the right or to the left of where I wanted to, and that somewhere before that, there was probably a point at which you could have noticed that you were not on the ball properly, or that your emotions were conflicted, or maybe you didn't have a proper clear commitment to one shot so that your body could then like have more direction. um, and all those things, once you identify like, oh, that was probably what it was, now you can just let it go and forget about it, because you've learned by looking at that past moment, by changing your perspective about what just happened. You've learned something about how to operate in the future, and that makes you realize that you have actually grown from that experience. If you just allow an experience to be negative and then you don't reframe it such that it's positive, then every time you think about a similar situation, you're going to have that same attached negativity. But as soon as you start being able to identify those experiences as positive versus negative, then they will be positive experiences, because as you experience things, kind of like you don't really learn your lesson until you've been able to just go like, oh yeah, I see what happened. I just did it that way, and if I did it this other way, the new way that's better, then all that would just go away, and that's all I really have to focus on. And then once you realize that, then you're like, oh, okay, well, now it's not really about what happened. It's about finding out where I could make a change. And then once you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try this change, and then we're going to try to implement that over time when the situation comes up. And then if that works and you do better, now you've known that you've grown. So it's all about the process, so to speak. With it, just like changing your perspective. Like an event that happens, you want to be able to frame it as positively as possible. One way that you can help yourself is like when you're sitting in the chair waiting to play, no matter what's happening, you should be thinking about a positive way that you can, when it becomes your turn, that when you get into your next shot, that you're already in a positive mindset moving forward. One thing that I've been working on myself is like trying to pay attention to the table and pretend that I'm actually shooting the run out, not necessarily that my opponent is doing it, so that I'm like kind of rehearsing the mental rehearsal of my own success and not worrying so much about what my opponent is doing, knowing that I really have no control over what's happening. They're just going to do what they do. And then now when it's my turn, then it's going to be my turn to shoot. And I want to be as prepared as I can for that. And by having a perspective of, oh, okay, well, I'm going to like, prepare myself by like doing a positive thing in my mind, even though I physically can't perform an action that's productive, but I can see and kind of really try to feel the way that the table is playing by watching what they're doing and seeing the physics of the particular condition of the table at that moment, and then try to play and feel the shots and connect to the shots that I might be playing in the future, or like the ones that are on the table, and think, oh, if I was here, what would it look like? What would it feel like to make this ball come over here? Say I'm not even playing and my opponent is playing. We're playing a rack and nine ball. Like watching the shot kind of happen in my mind before I shoot it, so that then when I get up out of the chair and I'm not fresh, necessarily, and maybe it's a key shot, then I'll be able to more easily create that imagination, that positive imagination that's going to help me make that ball and get out, And, if I'd hit balls, I could probably make that more often. I was trying to punch it. But I haven't hit too many balls today. My point is also on that is that perspective. See, I like explained exactly what I was trying to do. And then when I have a mistake or an error, it doesn't bother me because I know what I was trying to do. I saw what happened. And now I can just use that information next time to realize that all I had to do there was just hit slightly above where I hit on the cue ball, and then instead of it drawing into the side, it would have hit in that spot that I wanted to and came out. And that's what more is there than knowing the actual answer? Like the question that I asked was, what's going to happen when I hit the ball here? And I really wanted to go here, but then by like doing the math of like paying attention to the shot and doing the experiment, I have all the answers that I needed to have. So I basically like have reframed that event, which could be like, ooh, I scratched and now they won, to, well, I know now that, maybe my stroke is, this table is drawing a little bit better than I thought, because I was trying to just punch it and go to the rail and then come off the rail a little bit. But now I know that the cueing that I used wasn't the correct cueing for that, but it's still information that I can use for my next opportunity. So it's always, every event that happens is an opportunity to reframe. Even like if you go into a match maybe and you were really feeling confident, but then you made a couple mistakes, and now you're like, oh, I thought, it was all going to work out for me, and now I'm in a really bad place, then you got to take a step back. And one thing that I might say to myself in a situation where, things are not going my way and I feel like I just can't quite, put it all together, and a lot of times once I realized that, it was like, well, that's typical of when I'm not as relaxed as I want to be, then now I'm like, okay, well, probably what's happened is I've created too much importance on what I thought was going to happen and how I thought it was going to go down. And then now I'm realizing that I actually just probably came into it without seeing as clearly what's actually happening, and then adjusting more quickly and adapting to the situation, thinking that I could just enforce my will on the table and just play the way I want to play, and that's going to make it happen, versus using the table and the information that it's giving you to dictate the style of play that you're going to have to play that day to win that match, to get that outcome that you wanted. And then once you realize, it's like, well, what do I actually have to do from here to win? Then you start really being more productive with your thought process versus wondering why I'm screwing up and missing. It's like, well, that's, it's just a lack of information mostly, or emotionally you're too tied and invested in the thing, and that causes you to, lose track of what's important, which is, to shoot any particular shot all you need to do is just like, well, plan it as best you can. You know, you got to hit exactly the spot with the cue ball to make the object ball go to a place, and then whatever energy's left on the cue ball is going to make it go wherever. And all you really got to do is plan for that as best you can, and then you shoot your shot. You know, and if there's something that you're not paying attention to that has to do with those things, and you're paying attention to something else that's not those things, then you know, then there's room for improvement. I would say, is if you're focusing completely on what you're doing when you do it, and then you see what happened, and you're not emotionally invested necessarily, like you're clinical about what you're looking at, then it's harder to um, not get information that's helpful. You know, but partly you have to go into it knowing that it's not that big of a deal if I miss this one ball. What's important about it is if I do miss or I do succeed, that I learn something from the experience, and that way I can be in my mind always positively affecting, you know, what's going on in my mind. It's like, well, I learned from that shot. Now I know what's really going on, and now when I take my next shot, then I'm going to be even better than I was. I constantly try to tell myself, the longer this goes, the better I'm going to play, because eventually I will figure out exactly what's going on, and then I will be able to adapt, and I will be able to do all these things and it's just a matter of time and finding that place where I can be positive about what's happening, because once you start being positive, you start seeing the opportunities, and you stop looking at problems like they're really problems. You know, life experience just tells you is like, well, yeah, there's going to be a thing that you need to learn to move forward at all times. You're pretty much never going to be in a spot where you're going to live your best life and not be learning and challenging yourself. You know, and one of the things I'd like to do is to try to challenge myself to get better all the time, because to me that's part of the fun of it. Is, you know, you got to, like, you know, put some out there to get some back, so to speak. You know, just living off the residual is fine, you know, but I think that I want to be able to say that my best stories are coming after right now. You know, I don't want to be talking about the past like that was my best life, and then now I'm just like living off of that, because my long-term perspective is that I have things that I'm going to accomplish, and that requires me to put in effort right now to be better at this. You know, and that's why I don't mind. I'm not suffering through the practice time and all that, because my perspective tells me that I have to do this to get what I want. So I do want this. This is what I want to do. Even if it may not feel like that at the moment, it's about the perspective. It's like, yeah, this is the work. If I do this, then I will become a better player, and then the game will actually be more fun. You know, so this is actually fun because this is improving my game. And then now you're teaching yourself how to enjoy yourself no matter what is happening, because you are moving yourself forward, and you know that, because it just makes sense that it's like, you know, if you spend any energy, you know, repeating the same activity over and over again, you're going to naturally get better at it. You know, if you shoot a straight in ball, and then you're trying to do perfect position every time, say I just want to perform a stop shot, and you shoot this shot, it will not stop perfectly dead, hardly ever. It'll move a little bit here and there, and then you think, well, what do I have to do to improve? Well, you just hit it a few times, and then all of a sudden now you'll be like, okay, I'm getting more consistent. I can see improvement, and that's just over, you know, if you did this shot like 20 times, you'd know by the end of that 20th rep that, you know, you'd be more in tune with that shot. And that is a simple example of how pool it's that easy, where you just, if you're struggling with the shot, you just keep hitting it and you will get better at it. You know, and obviously over time your fundamentals, like your stance and all that, will evolve along with your ability to perform a shot. And, you know, as long as you pay attention to the way your motion is, and I think that if you want it to be complicated, then you can. You know, truthfully to me, you know, you're just hitting the ball with one swing. So most of what you do before that is just kind of setup. And there takes some getting down into the ball, but it doesn't have to be complicated. The final swing is what hits the ball. The lead up to that is just comfort to get to that perfect final swing, so to speak. And that's my perspective of it. That's why I try not to spend a lot of time down on the ball, because to me, the way I like to, my perspective of the visualization is that it's better to just do all the work and effort of seeing what you're about to do while you're not doing it. If you're down on the ball now, you're trying to decide what to do. To me, you could have planned a little bit earlier on, and then now you'd already be in a place where I'm just following through with what the plan would have been from the beginning. Because at some point, you know, any particular shot, you have to do all the same kinds of things. But to me, the sequence of that, it makes sense from a certain standpoint of just if I take as much as I can and do it while I'm in a contemplative mode, then when I'm actually in action, there's less thought, and to me that makes more sense. Let's see, what else do we got on perspective. You know, and to, you know, I think that everyone is going to have their own like little ways to talk themselves in and out of being successful in situations, and it's important to kind of pay attention to what's going on in your mind. Like, pay attention to your own imagination and then try to learn how to control it and use it to benefit you, and, you know, remove those nightmare scenarios through effort of just being like, oh, I'm, instead of visualizing the downside, I'm going to visualize more positively. You know, at minimum, I'm going to be in my mind at the end of the set, I'm going to be more relaxed, you know, than I once was when I'm in these situations, win or lose. You know, like I said, you don't get to control necessarily if you win. If the other person plays well, they deserve it just as much as you do. It's more about how you represent yourself, in my opinion, because in the long run, if you represent yourself as best as you can, that means you're giving your best effort on every shot. You know, whether or not you're shooting fast or slow is not really the point. I think each person has their own tempo, and it's more about like, am I consciously trying my best here, and what my best looks like is more about like what I'm working on. You know, if I'm trying to play more methodically because I've been known to be a fast shooter, and now I need to be like, well, I need to be more contemplative when I shoot and less, you know, running around the table and just trying to feel every shot and then just move through them really quickly without really spending more energy on it. Then you could be trying to play a little bit more methodic game versus another person who's like, well, I want to get a little bit more, pick up the pace, you know, and have a little bit of a better rhythm, because I feel like sometimes I overanalyze, and it's harder to make a clear decision, and then that person has a whole nother game that they're trying to work on, you know, and at the end of the day, they both could actually be using the same rhythm and pace that they're trying now, but be coming from opposite perspectives of where they were versus where they're going now. So it's very like interesting how, you know, you have to be aware of what you're thinking, what your natural tendencies are, what your like common habits are, and then when you see those and you're like, you know what, I would like to try something different. So when I'm in these kinds of scenarios, I'm going to try to reinforce a particular thing or a particular mindset, and that can change your game over time just through that, like, not necessarily like actively being like, I'm going to enforce this ritual. I'm going to, instead of that, I'm just going to be like, you know what, I'm going to, you know, be way more however I need to be to move in the direction that I need to move. You know, like, instead of, you know, one stroke in every ball, I'm going to actually go and look to see the exact position that I want to be for my next shot, so that enforces a learning and a differentiation from who you were as your your regular behavior, and then it changes you sort of into a new person through a change of like your perspective about how you're going to go about doing something. You know, it's like, I was seeing it this way, I want to see it more like this, so I have to make steps. And a lot of that's just like, well, I'm going to think about this. Is like, well, instead of thinking offense first today, I'm going to think safety first. Even if I shoot the offensive shot every single time, if I look for a defensive maneuver before I shoot my shot, that will change my style of play over time, because I will see more defensive opportunities even if I don't use them. And that's just a perspective thing, where it's like you can shoot exactly the same game as somebody else, but with a different perspective, and that can make all the difference, you know. And
There's a question in the chat.
all right, do we have anything?
Yeah,
We can move on.
do you have expectations of success, or do you feel that could lead to disappointment? How do you maintain confidence without expectations?
Here, let me read that so in case they can't hear it. All right, this comes from Brett. Do you have expectations of success, or do you feel that could lead to disappointment? How do you maintain confidence without expectations? Well, this is an interesting question that I would say pertains a lot to your definition of success and your requirements to feel that you've been successful. If your definition of success is, for instance, making this shot and then drawing over and landing on this spot right here, then if that doesn't happen exactly like that, then you're not going to be successful, because you have to end up on that exact spot to be successful. So now you're saying, well, it's like, well, if I'm like relying on that metric to like measure my own success, then it's going to be very difficult. Not to say that it's not going to happen or that you won't forgive yourself for not being perfect. It's just that for me, my measurement for success has more to do with accomplishing my intentions of change in my behaviors more than anything else. I try to think more in long term, whereas like each shot itself is not important. What's important is the body of work, which is the energy that you put towards every shot. You want to be the best energy that you have, you know, and if you can work towards that and strive towards that ideal, then I feel like you can be successful, because as soon as you realize you're not doing it, now you can use your good energy to get yourself back to that place. So like, for instance, if you start playing a little bit poorly and you're just kind of like, you know, whatever it is, I'm not getting to where I want to go, or I'm missing shots that I feel like I should make, then you'd be like, oh, well, I'm getting down on myself. I'm recognizing that. So now I'm like, okay, well, I've won already, because now the whole goal for success was to catch yourself slipping mentally, emotionally, and then, you know, flip the script in your mind and then decide, oh, okay, well, I was being a little bit down on myself. I caught myself. I like, you know, froze for a second, let myself relax and calm down, clear my mind, clear my heart, and then reinforce the energy that I wanted to have, which I've already initiated just by watching myself slip and get a little bit emotional in a way that I was like, oh, I feel like my goal here was just to have positivity, not to win necessarily. And that if, as long as I'm catching myself when I'm expressing any of the negativity that I don't want to express, and I add a positive behavior there, then I'm enforcing an eventual long-term change. So I should be happy, actually, that I'm catching myself being negative, if that makes sense. So it's hard not to be successful if you lower your expectations down to like, well, I don't know when I'm going to become, you know, or allow a little bit of negativity to enter my psyche. It's just one of those things where it's like you don't know what the trigger is going to be. All you know is that eventually you will probably get triggered, and then at that point, your goal is only going to be to just untrigger yourself and get back to that high place that you're feeling good and you feel like everything is fine and you're maximizing this moment. You know, as soon as you start being triggered by a moment, then now all of a sudden you're like kind of like not where you want to be. And the whole goal is really to just reduce the amount of those interactions and increase your percentage of time where you're actually kind of like recognizing that this is the moment where I can be living my best life by just, you know, being relaxed and chilling and understanding that I'm here, you know, to have a good time. And that as long as I do that, then it's like I know that enjoyment, you know, if you look at the studies, that, you know, just having fun makes you learn faster, you know, and that's becomes like, okay, well, how can I make it fun? And then, well, it's like, as long as I'm being positive, it is fun, even if it's serious, you know, and you might lose, but it's like, well, I tried my best, and I did really good, but he got me, that's still fun, versus like, well, I missed, so many shots, and then, just snowballed, and at the end I was just whacking at the balls, and, it was terrible, and you don't have to have that story. It's like, well, I was playing a little bit shaky, and then I recognized that I did my mantras or whatever, my mindfulness or whatever, reframing activity that you choose to have, and then I started playing better, and then maybe you still lost. It was too little, too late. It happens sometimes, but the positive thing is like that measurement of success would be that, well, I started playing better at the end, and now I know that all I need to do is just go into it knowing that I do have that game. I showed it. I just need to come with it earlier, and now I'm looking for a new way to do that. And now you've expressed a positive change, and now you have been successful. So, I mean, if you set your measurement of success up in a way, then you can avoid the disappointment of failing, because really it's not about the physical thing that happens, in my opinion. By using like a physical thing that happens as your measurement of success, now you're forcing yourself to be like in a situation where you don't have complete control. You don't know necessarily that any particular ball is going to go. So if you have to measure the way you feel about what happened by what happened, then you're going to lead yourself to some disappointment. To me, it's more about like mentally, was I in the place? And it's like, as long as I catch myself and I try to do my best towards pulling myself back into place, then I am being successful. Because mostly I am, trying to be in charge. I am in charge of myself. So it's more about like making it more automatic that you're in a positive mindset, and then that's the level of success where it's like I feel like I'm always being successful, because I know that I'm going to look back on the experience as a positive one, because if why that's just in my system, and I'm just adding to that. But obviously, everything isn't perfect. You're not going to do it 100% of the time, but that's not the point. The point is the trend is what makes you successful long term. It's not one battle, it's the war, so to speak. And then you realize, oh, well, it's not really a war, it's just every day is the new day, and then you wake up different, and then you have to deal with that, and because of that, it's every day is just a new learning experience. Anything else? All right, what time is it? 10:30. All right, well, I'm just gonna hit some balls now. Is there anybody even on right now?
Yeah, there's like 4 people on.
If anybody wants to ask me a question, now's the time.
Yeah, I did put it in the chat. I pinned it as a comment.
Yeah, or if Brett has anything to add to that or ask more questions.
I'll let you know.
Did you guys hear the dog sigh? Jeez, man. This is interesting. The 5 is tied up here, so this is really not a runnable rack. Hardly. But we're going to try for it. I think what I'm going to do here is try to play the cue ball down to the rail. Maybe I can use left English? I don't know. It doesn't look like I could do it. To play it here, and then back underneath. I think really what I'm going to try to do is play it with right English and then come and try to spin it back. And ideally, if I hit it right here into the rail and bump the 6 away, then I can shoot the 3 in the side. have more spin on it. Guess I did hit up here more than here. Now what? Try to cut the 3. It does look like it maybe it goes. It's really tight. The 6 is blocking part of the hole. And then, I don't know, if I get lucky, I could maybe hit the top of this ball. And then if I end up anywhere over here, then I can use that to go into the 5. So my focus here is just to make this 3 and see what happens. Nope.
Got 5 people up there now.
Oh yeah? Nice. Does anybody want to suggest a drill that I should do? Because I normally just break the 9 ball and then try to run out. Just as a fun thing. Dang.
You could do that 6-ball drill thing that you did with me.
Oh, the 6-ball drill?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or not.
I'm just thinking about what drills I like to do. I don't really like doing drills that much. I should do more drills. So you're going to draw over and bump the 9. Like right here.
Ladder drill.
The ladder drill? I don't even know what that is.
Chris Jacob.
What is the ladder drill?
Brett commented, maybe the better question was, how do you measure success?
Oh, me?
Great answer. If we focus our attention on smaller victories, then the bigger victory of winning smaller will be warranted.
So, what was he
Oh,
asking?
he said that's my buddy Mouse in the house. The ladder drill. That's what I said.
The ladder, yeah, I don't know what the ladder drill is. Maybe someone can send me a link sometime and then I'll do it next time. Yeah. I'm definitely not a professional pool player, so I haven't mastered all those drills yet. But working on it. I guess I could look it up. Do you want to look it up?
I can look it up.
It's probably one of those like really tough drills that you'll never have to worry about playing in a regular match. You just play safe.
Yeah, so it's got like a ball on each point, except for the middle, and then it's got like 3 lined up in the middle from the spot to the spot, and then one in the middle there. But then it's like the placement is different. It's like 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then.
Oh, I see. You gotta play position above the other ball. Interesting.
Ray says End Game Drill by Darren Appleton is always fun. What's your high score?
I don't even know. I don't know any of these drills. Because I pretty much just do the ghost. And then, see what I did wrong. And then we practiced quite a bit of banks.
What about the Knister middle game drill you were telling me about?
Oh, yeah, the middle game. I do like the middle game drill. It's basically like most people, they have it now, there's like, they use 4 balls now, I think, on most of them. I mean, it's, you know, the theory of a lot of these drills, you know, kind of comes down to more of a, you know, you got to get out here and hit balls, and if you get bored with one thing and you're not learning, then you got to find something else to do that you are learning. And I think, I don't even know if they do like in order or not for the one that I see, but the middle game is actually just 3 balls. But this one is fun, I guess. It challenges you to like stay in the middle of the table. I mean, all of these are kind of like, each drill has like a specific thing that you're going to learn from it, you know, and I think everyone can get better at all aspects of pool. So I'm just going to use actually just the 3 balls because I don't really know what the other one is. I think it's like this. Yeah, and then on this table, I don't really like doing a lot of drills because it doesn't have drop pockets. It has ball return, so you have to like go back to the end of the table every time. You can't just spot the ball back up. So it kind of gets to where you have to walk around a lot if you're doing drills. And if you just do like the ghost, then you can just rack the balls up, practice your break, which is one of the things that I need to work on myself. And then just try to run the balls out, and you actually learn how to break the balls. You know, and like to me, you know, you're not going to learn certain things from that. But you do learn how to break and run better, and I think that's a skill that most people could use more work on. You know, is learning how to break and make a ball and play position for the first ball, and then end up just running the balls out like wherever they're at. So this is just a run out drill. You put your ball that's on the rail like a quarter of an inch off the rail. This is on the 2-1 diamond, and then this one will be in between. And I think that for the beginning of the drill, there's like orders of the balls, the way that they're placed. But once you get to like where you're just running them out, and you just throw them out however, and then you can even just move them, like just leave them all. But obviously with this, they'll all be coming back up. So then the 4 might be over here, and you just run them in order, and you can't touch any of the balls. So you have to play mostly in the middle of the table. Once there's like only maybe one ball over here, you could play forward and through that zone if you have to get shape. But the ideal is you just play to the good angle for the next shot, and so on and so forth. So it's really good about controlling in the middle of the table without scratching, because if you get thin on a ball, you might end up like going boom and coming across and scratching, or you try to draw and scratch. So this teaches you how to control the middle of the table better, which I think for like 9-foot table play is pretty crucial. Bar tables, you end up not needing to be in the middle as much. You can play short side and shoot all the way down and still be pretty accurate. So, but on a 9-foot table also, and this is good for if you play on a 9-footer, but you also compete on a bar table. The balls where they're at here, that's pretty much like mostly as far as you're ever going to be from the hole on regular shots, if you're playing this style of play. So it teaches you how to be a good ball pocketer and play position as well. Because it has kind of a combination of tough shots and tough positions sometimes. So I'm going to play here with right English and draw, and just try to play to the same spot where the cue ball is at, but maybe a little bit further. Yeah, and this teaches you how to stay on the correct side of the ball, because if you get on the opposite side, you're gonna, like for this shot, if I go past straight in, then I'm gonna hit the 8 ball. So I'm gonna make sure to stay on that side of the ball. And if I get too steep on this 4, then it's hard to get above the 5, because you're gonna want to be like going back and forth. So you kind of have to get a nice angle on the 4 to draw back to the middle of the table, so you have the angle you need for the 5. Although you really only need to be almost just straight in on the 5 because of where the 6 is at. But this teaches you how to look ahead. Then also teaches you that the patterns are very repeating. Like some of the balls are actually, if you think about the order that they're going to be ran, they're in exactly the same place as other balls. You just can't really see it as easily where there's only so many different variations of the way the patterns are. Once you kind of have that figured out, it kind of like you realize there's just like normal pathways almost that you have to do things. So this is a lot of low and a lot of right. Here I'm gonna play into the rail and back out. Then I can just use draw and avoid the side pocket. It's easy to draw with right English and draw above it. I don't want to do that. I almost scratched. So here I'm just going to draw so where I'm not queued up over the 9. So I normally like playing it over in here, so I can play one rail and back, but if I end up straight in, that's okay. Pretty much the only thing you don't want to do is end up really steep on this ball. This is like the worst spot you can get. So as long as you're getting some draw, but you don't scratch, you're probably going to be fine. Because now that there's not that many balls on the table, you can actually go to the end rail and back up. So this is pretty much you've won the drill. Once you've gotten to this point, you just have to keep executing. And this is going to be the same kind of shot as I shot on the, what was it, the 4 to the 5. It's just coming across and over here, I think. I'm a little bit too steep to hold it. Ugh, hung it. So then, you know, traditionally you just spot the balls back up in the exact same order they were, and then shoot them again, so that you can learn the pattern. If you didn't get there, you eventually like understand the pattern that you played. You just make it better, and then you'll get out. But I can't remember where the balls are, so I'm just gonna throw them back up.
Brett is asking, so there's an order you're shooting to the balls, or just run them out in any order?
This is a rotation drill, so there's 12 balls. Yeah, you got to play them in order. I know there's a variation where you don't have to, but I don't know. To me, you know, each drill, like I said, has a different like benefit to it that's different than the benefit for another drill. This one I think hits a lot of different things where it gets you. It's 12 balls first of all, so like if you can run 12 balls out, you could definitely run 8 out or 9, like you will in rotation typical games. You know, if you make a ball in the break, you're playing 10 ball, you have 9 balls. Even if they're all on the table, there's 10. You know, yeah, these are positioned a little bit interestingly, but if it takes a certain amount of like focus to run 12 balls in a row, and you know, by learning how to do this drill, then you'll definitely have enough focus for an easy rack of 9 ball to be able to run all the balls without getting tired or just getting losing your focus about playing position for every shot, because this is just like you have to play position for every shot. You can't just hit the balls, you know, and ever get out. You'll never get out if you don't play position. So the key here from the 2 to the 3 is not too big of a deal. Like a decent like 15 or 12 degree angle or whatever, basically on this line is all I really need to do. When the balls are on the rails, they're a little bit trickier. On this table, it bounces quite a bit more than like an older Brunswick. So as long as I get off the rail enough, then I can create the angle. Now I'm going to just draw back, and really here I'd like to, if I get straight in it's okay, or almost straight in, then I can draw back over to this side, but I really need to be a little bit past the angle. So what I'm looking at doing is maybe drawing maybe here. Now this is okay. This is that first scenario where I'm going to draw back to the middle of the table. And again, this is just maintaining the correct sideness of the angle. If you get over here, now you can bump into the 9. So that's one of the things you have to be aware of. But you get used to that over time, because you just want to have a clear path for your cue ball. One rail back to the middle of the table. See, I ended up pretty steep. I was pretty shallow on the 5, so I couldn't come out much. So now I'm playing just draw here, and I'm actually going to play 2 rails back over to the middle. And then I don't have to draw it that much. I only have to get a couple degrees of angle. Like if I draw it like this, that much only, then when it comes back off the rail, it'll be up here, and then I can come out to here by only getting just a little bit. Like even this much would be enough, you know, then come to here. You can almost accomplish that on this shot with just right English. Yeah, missed it. Maybe I should be shooting this drill more often. I'm finding it a lot more difficult to do this while I'm talking, I'll tell you. We're back. I did it. All right. Dang it.
3 minutes.
What's that?
3 minutes left.
3 minutes left. Sweet. All right. I'm putting this drill away. I feel like I had it there. My hip popped a little bit on that when I got down over that last ball and it threw me off. All right, we're gonna do one more.
Brett was like, success.
I know, I hit it right one time. And I just got this cue back from like being broken. So I switched over from my longer cue to this cue, and it's a little bit different. Anyways, I'm getting there. Yeah, I feel like my bridging is a little
Probably
bit
shouldn't
different.
be watching while driving. It says wired space. But
Yeah. Well, as long as you're not paying attention to what I'm doing, then you should be fine. Now, how do we get down here for the 5? Dang. All right. I think if we can just draw over to like here.
if I'm over the 8, this is gonna be tough. All right. Maybe I can bump back into the 8 here. I definitely could, but I had to make it 2. Dang. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for that showed up. I appreciate y'all and have a great one. We'll see you next time.